Hello, everyone, and welcome to the House of Peregrine podcast. Today, I'm extremely excited to have on Sandra Nelly, who is an astrologer and astrocartographer and is going to tell us about the astrology of place. Sandra, I am so excited to have you on today. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I want to start out, maybe we'll start, if you don't mind, giving us a brief definition of astrocartography, and then we can move into who you are, which I'd love
Yeah,
to
for
hear.
sure. I don't want to get too technical because there could be people listening that might not know anything about astrology. But just to start off at the very beginning, all of us are made up of a blueprint. We call it natal chart or birth chart. It's essentially your birth time, location, and date dictate kind of your 12 houses, and it's called a birth chart. You can pull it up. There's a lot of free sites if you're curious. And it's kind of the blueprint or the makeup of our personality and who we are. Planets fall into different places, and everyone has like a unique birth chart. Even if you're twins, there are little things that will be different most of the time. And astrocartography, as you said, we're talking about place, and we can take that birth chart and that information and overlay it essentially in the global map. And different places will have different sort of energies flowing into your life depending on where you are. And this birth chart essentially also changes depending on where you live. So something really interesting to note for your audience.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you move somewhere, it actually changes your chart, you said.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
All right. I can't wait to get into that. But first, I want to know
Yeah.
who you are. Tell us just about you a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm a globetrotter myself. I've moved around my whole life. Kind of started as a kid with my parents, and then when I was like a grown up, I kind of like chose that lifestyle. So I've done it all. I've been a digital nomad. I moved for work. I traveled the world. So I'm kind of like back and forth between places and on planes all the time. Kind of between North America and Europe at the moment. And I also travel at least once a month for pleasure as well. So just constantly living that like laptop lifestyle.
Yeah. And do you think, is that, I always ask people this question because I always
Mm-hmm.
love hearing their response. Do you think that that's something innate in you that feels good to always be moving like that and being in different places? Or do you think that's something that happened because of how you grew up?
So it's actually my birth chart. So you can
Ah,
essentially see it there. There's a lot of but again, not trying to get too technical, but there's a lot of like different pointers just pointing at that. So again, it's kind of like the blueprint of the makeup of me.
yeah. So that's one way you can maybe explain it, is that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about how Peregrines, so House of Peregrine is all about making that intentional, making that finding other people like you and making a culture around it. And so I found that people tend to, there's like something, and maybe it's in their birth chart, all of them, but they say they have itchy feet, or they have like something in them always wanted to be on the move, or had this impulse to see the world or go somewhere else if it didn't suit them. And so I love that there might be a tool to help us maybe make sense of that,
Yeah.
and also maybe help us plan, like one tool to help us plan.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. It's just like another piece of the pie, if you will. Some more knowledge to kind of puzzle things together, understand like where is the best place for me, or where can I have the best success in life and career and love and whatever the goal is.
yeah. And how did you come to this? So tell us just quickly, where were you born? Just give us an overview of your life and then how you got to this, and then we're going to dive in.
Yeah, so I was born in Germany, and then when I was two, we moved to Canada, and then ever since then, we've kind of been moving everywhere. And I've lived in many places, including Amsterdam, including London, Stockholm. So like I've been all over the place. But yeah, so astrology has been part of my life ever since I can remember. It's kind of like, my mom, my aunt, everyone were like all of the people in my life were kind of into it. So I've always been like reading
Was it
books
like
and
was it like in magazines, like you would look up your horoscope, or was it something else?
No, there were actually, my mom had like a friend who was doing a lot of readings, and actually I had an astrocartography reading back in the day, not knowing what it is. And actually it was like
Ah,
obviously super manual back then, not to age myself, but now we have like great software that we can just like, quickly punch everything in and kind of run all the details. Yeah, so we have like tons of books around the house, or I spent a lot of time at my aunt's place and same thing. And, like, just like, you know, just I
that's
was
amazing.
surrounded by all of that. And yeah, it's just really fascinating. For me, it's really about not so much like predicting things, but really about like unlocking. I'm just always fascinated by like personality tests and like who am I, who are these people I'm dealing with. And like I read this book, it was kind of aimed at like, say an Aries as a kid, an Aries as a dad, an Aries as a mom, and kind of going through the zodiac. And I was like just kind of reading through that, and I'm like, oh wow, this is me, this is my dad, this is my aunt, this is, so it kind of like resonated with me. And kind of, yeah, I've been just like definitely like studying and in and out with that. And then when astrocartography came into my life, and again, coming back to kind of that full circle moment, oh, I have, had a reading without knowing that was astrocartography, because I was a kid and just like had no concept of like what's going on. So yeah, when I discovered that, it was like really that full circle moment. I'm like, oh wow, so this is really, and I've always had a fascination with maps, and like I just loved going to like when I lived in London, there was this massive store with maps. I just like loved going there and spending my whole day there, and just like, yeah, geography in general, and just like, just very passionate about it. So I'm like, this is great. I can put like my both passions together, and kind of like, yeah, that's how I got into it.
That's amazing. And so as a kid, it was part of your growing up. Then you kind
Mm-hmm.
of did university, did, I think, marketing for a while?
Yeah, I did marketing. So communication, just, general media and marketing. And I was also, again, as like I said, I was always fascinated also about like the aspect of people and personality and
Yeah.
tests and things like that. So like the other part was always like, HR and like,
Yeah.
something like, more stable, if you will, and kind of business. And then I also like did career coaching, worked with a lot of marketers, also coaching them, and kind of like, yeah, then saw astrology, because I focus on career and business astrology as well as astrocartography. Kind of like I saw that really like fitting in, and kind of I'm able to like use both in certain
Yeah.
readings, but yeah, I just use astrology primarily now to help
Yeah.
others.
So that full circle moment you're talking about is basically as a kid, you were immersed in this. And then you went on a different path, got skills. A lot. This happens a lot, actually. Did like a real job,
Yeah,
if you will, and then came back to it somehow. And that full circle moment is you finding, oh, all the things I've been doing have kind of led to
yeah,
my craft.
exactly.
And I think that's really beautiful, actually. And especially this happens, I think, when we're, I don't know. I don't know if it's just a process of maturing or something, but when we come back and that moment you realize, like, oh, I got a reading when I was a kid. That's an amazing
Yeah.
moment. I love that so much. And you're like, it's been in my blood all the time. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
I
really
mean,
cool.
with careers in general, right? I mean, especially the day and age we live in now, people have multiple careers through their lifetime. And
Yeah.
obviously, a lot of people I work with actually come to me because they want to understand what is actually, their ideal career. They want to change something, but they don't really know how. And we look at their midheaven, which is kind of like your number one career pointer. There's different like houses in the birth chart, and obviously planets that come into play, and really try to unlock what is kind of already ingrained in you. Where could you be best? We put different aspects together, and there's so much that we can look at.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like I try to give them as much knowledge as possible so they can make an informed decision. And in terms of astrology, that actually happens a lot. That a lot of people dip in and out of astrology. Some people have their spiritual awakening way later in life. Some people have been exposed to astrology like myself, and kind of like have studied, did like something completely different, then come back to it. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's very common amongst
Yeah.
peers for sure.
Yeah. And I had always heard of, I mean, I've been interested in it, like just in the back of magazines for years, just it's a fun, I mean, I think I'm a Libra, so I think when you're a Libra, you get a lot of positive attention. So like when you look in a book, especially back when I was a kid, Libra always had something nice to say. So I think it
Yeah.
helped. um,
Yeah, I mean, the horoscopes in magazines, that's a whole nother topic.
yeah,
Obviously, some of them are written by astrologers, others maybe not so
yeah,
much. And also they're, focused usually on sun signs. Generally, as astrologers, we prefer to look at rising signs or your
yeah,
ascendant. You might have heard of that. That's essentially your first
yeah,
house. And that's kind of you as the person, the personality, while the sun sign is more like how people see you or perceive you. So there's like a big
yeah.
debate really around that. And, astrologers, when they do these kind of horoscopes, they say, look at your rising sign. Again, there's lots of free tools. You can, if you don't know your rising
Well,
sign, it's like,
now there is.
now
But
there is,
yeah,
exactly.
but when I was a kid, there was just the magazines, or
Mm-hmm.
the books. But I think there are a lot of free tools out there. But what I've learned, and this is for astrology and now into astrocartography,
Mm-hmm.
is having someone who's skilled at reading it gives you more insights because you're looking at many more points
Mm-hmm.
perhaps than someone. And so when you combine that with perhaps like a goal or a question.
Mm-hmm.
So is that kind of how people come to you? They're like, okay, I have a question, or I have a something I am wondering about. Is that how people normally come to you first?
Yeah, it depends. So, first of all, yes, for astrocartography specifically, it definitely, like, if you can, please work with an astrocartographer. And I'm not saying that because, I run a business, but I'm saying that because the sites that are out there that are for free, they don't even show you all the details, or you cannot really zoom in. And it's not just about the lines you see and the meaning, it's also in relation to your relocated chart, in relation to things without getting too technical. There's things
Yeah,
like vertical lines and also horizontal lines. A lot of people don't look at those, but they also are very important. So there's just a lot to kind of
yeah,
digest and look at. So if you can, please work with an astrocartographer. As for how people come to me, it varies. Like some people are just like completely like, I don't know where to move. Obviously there's sometimes like criteria like visa situations, like where can I actually go, that we try to limit it, because like looking around the world everywhere in much detail is obviously like basically impossible. But so I try to like ideally 1 to 2 locations for a deep dive, but obviously 4 to 5 is also fine to get started. And obviously first we can look at the whole world. Some people come to me and are just like, okay, I want to move, within the US. I want like, a better climate situation or better political situation, or, I just want to live in like a bigger town or something like that. And sometimes, yes, people, obviously because I'm a career and business astrologer, so I naturally get those people already kind of coming to me like, I want to, move somewhere for better career opportunities, for example, or, to get better business opportunities.
yeah,
But I try to get people to focus on one like primary goal and one secondary goal, if at all.
yeah,
Just because there's no place that's 100% perfect. That's like the number one disclaimer. Every report I send out, every reading I have, every astrocartographer will tell you that. Like you might be having a place that's super great for your career, but maybe not so great for, for home life.
yeah.
You have to
Yeah, there's
compromise.
lots of things. So I just want to back up really quick. So with astrology, most people know that astrology is your time of birth, or no, it's sometimes just your date of birth. And then there's like a more specific one that's your date and time of birth, and that can give you more information. When we go into what you're doing, it's even more specific to these are places that you will thrive. So you use your birth date and time and place, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can project which parts of the world would be best for you, say if you want to grow your business or if you want to have better relationships. And these are places specific to you
Mm-hmm.
and your birth time, that it's not that you can't fall in love somewhere else or you can't have a successful business. These are just places that are just like really good for you. Is that how you'd put it? Like they will really make things easier.
Yeah, and again, there's so many things that come into play. So at the very least, the top three, as I was saying, like the planetary lines, the vertical lines, which have like, they have a span of quite a lot of kilometers or miles. And then the parans, which are like the horizontal lines, which some people will ignore if you're working with an astrocartographer, or ask them if they're working with parans, and the relocated chart. So again, two of these might be looking great, but then the relocated chart, for example, has something that you'll just have to deal with because, there's, again, no perfect place unless you're 100% like lucky and like, the chances are like it's written in your stars. And but yeah, usually there's some compromise. Having said that, especially for astrocartography, yes, you mentioned. So in general, if you run a birth chart, yes, ideally you want to have all your details, including the birth time. If you don't, you can also get a rectification specialist, kind of try to work that out for you. But that's a whole other story. For astrocartography, you definitely want to be like super exact, because even if you're like a few minutes off with your birth time, the astrocartography will change. So before coming to me, you ideally want to know your exact birth time.
And I just took the one from my birth certificate.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that
yeah. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, that's the best way. Obviously, some people might not have that, especially like in older generations. Obviously different countries are also, like recording things differently. That's from an official source, like a birth certificate, that's ideal. Obviously, some people sometimes ask their mom or dad, and obviously they know roughly it was in the afternoon, but it's
Morning,
not precise. So if you can check your birth certificate or official sources, that's the best way.
And I hear you saying that if you don't know, you can do what? You said you can have a
rectification. You can go to like a rectification special, like astrologer, essentially, that works things out. Kind of, they work backwards. Like, they try to. It's a huge kind of undertaking, but it's very interesting. If you're curious, there's like some examples, for example, on YouTube. So they kind of work backwards. They puzzle things together based on what we know, and then kind of ask you questions on the possibilities, what your birth time could be, where do you see yourself fitting in, and a lot of other things. But that's definitely an option if you don't have any means to access your exact birth time.
Never heard of this. Super interesting. Okay, thanks for explaining that. And so now I have my birth time, I have my birthplace, I have my question or my purpose for finding this out.
Yeah.
So I can come to you, and I did this actually. I came to you and said, okay, can you just take a quick look so we can give people an example? And to have you, you're looking at it differently than a computer program would be. So you can maybe get a tiny bit of an idea by putting it into one of the free things, but coming to you, and I've given you my stuff, so you can look in and say, what can you tell from, like, maybe give me an example, like when you did a brief look.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, like, as I was saying, there's free tools out there, but the best one out there as astrocartographers is called SolarFire. It's a bit old school, but it's professional software that just has all the features you can imagine and more. There's another tool called AstroGold. Also, a lot of astrologers use it. They just rolled out a few astrocartography kind of improvements just earlier this year. So I kind of use a combination of both just for various reasons. But we definitely have software that can go just way more in detail. It can run like very easily various relocated charts, or like I can even go with like a little cursor across the world and just see how things change. So I would definitely, first of all, again, some people come to me and they're like already, okay, I only want to move to like California or the Netherlands. So then already I'm like looking at that in more detail. Other people are like, okay, I don't know where to go at all. And obviously people, come to me as well, like, I want to travel somewhere and just like, feel super relaxed. Like, then obviously I look at the whole world and kind of try to see, where the planetary lines, first of all, that could assist with that, and then kind of try to narrow it down. And often it's like a back and forth when it's a report. And obviously if it's a reading, it's like, way more immediate and we can just talk about it and I can screen share. So so that's kind of I pull up the relocate. First of all, I look at your natal chart, of course. yours. And then pull up your astrocartography map, which is based on your natal birth chart. Then again, I look at the planetary lines. I look at the relocated chart. So once we kind of start narrowing it down on locations and kind of like, advise on how things change. So in your example, I know you are born in Utah in the US and you lived in various locations there. So for example, the relocated chart, because the locations are so close, it wouldn't change much from your birth chart. But now that you've moved to Amsterdam, definitely, things have shifted. And what I was able to see, for example, just in your relocated chart, that career is a bigger focus, that, working with technologies and groups and foreigners is definitely in your birth chart, both in terms of like making money and kind of, partnerships. So just like, yeah, it's very interesting to see, knowing what you do also, that it kind of lines up. And in terms of also obviously I just like had a brief look, but so in terms of your parent, so the horizontal lines, you have actually one going right through Amsterdam and one just like very, very close to it. So you will be feeling those energies, and they actually support kind of what you are doing as well. And again, not trying to get too technical, but you have like a Venus line, for example, and Venus Mercury associated with communications, and you have like an interesting placement in your chart. Venus, because you have a night chart, is also your benefic, so like your most positive planet, and you have it in your money house in Amsterdam. So again, it's kind of like a beneficial line, if you will, for that as well. And then for the planetary lines, you have like a few over Europe. So the energies for that, they span further. So up to 1,000 kilometers. Obviously, the closer you are, the better, or maybe not, because sometimes we actually recommend not being on the line because the energies could be so strong. So it's actually sometimes better to be further away. In your case, there's no line like right within the vicinity, but you have a line kind of going through, I want to say like through Germany, kind of roughly there. So you're a bit further away. But just like the line, again, kind of like more indicates more energy, and also it has like specific meaning with the placement in your relocated chart. But just like, yeah, like you're definitely like a, career wise, like more a go-getter in your current location versus in Utah, for example. One interesting thing is also like you have a lot of like positive placements in the House of Career, so as opposed to Utah. And and also Chiron, I would need to look it up again, but I remember like the Chiron is essentially the kind of like wounding and healing. So we all have it placed somewhere, and kind of where it's placed, it kind of means some, we have something to deal with, and it could be like, more negatively impacted, but it's also like a lesson learned, or a lesson to be learned there, and something to be healed. So just like the placement of that has shifted for you, and it's kind of like, I believe in Utah, it was in the 10th house, so 10th house of career, and that has shifted now into a different house in Amsterdam. So I guess that's also like something that's, kind of positively impacting you, at least in terms of career and business.
This is insane, because it really, like we came to Amsterdam basically on intuition. Mm-hmm. So it's really funny that you can tell my story backwards, basically, and you don't know me at all.
Yeah, and honestly, so intuition should not be ignored, like knowing all the things you know. But if you have a calling, and I've had this many times in my life, so I mentioned I lived in Stockholm, I've lived in various places. I had a calling, just I wanted to go to these places. I didn't know why, but there's always a lesson to be learned, or a story to unfold. So you should definitely not ignore your intuition, even like if the astrocartography is maybe not supportive, but there could be just a lesson, especially people who travel, like, obviously relocation is, something different, but yeah, if you have a calling, definitely. And again, for me, it was also like kind of really interesting when I kind of, again, started to look into astrocartography, to really look at, my lines in Sweden. And to this day, I getting like a lot of, business, if you will, from Sweden, even though I haven't been there in many, many years. Looking back at my astrocartography there's 100% the explanation to why. So I was also very busy there. And again, that's also written in the map, if you will.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so I feel like you just gave us a little bit of a sample of what it's like to work. So you did just like a quick, hopefully, overview. But when someone works with you this way, you basically go deeper into their chart and have like
Yes.
a session, and then you can tell them things, they can ask questions. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I work in two ways. So I do either written reports, also because I can do them kind of, without you having to wait sometimes multiple weeks to meet in person. So and a lot of it is like back and forth. Like I'm always on, responding to people on email, asking additional questions, just because I try to tailor things as much as possible as I would in a reading, where for astrocartography, like I definitely, and a lot of my peers, we do a lot of pre-work. So, we don't go in just blindly. We definitely look at all the details already ahead. It's a lot of information, as you can probably gather already, to just know, and I could put them all like kind of like into a report as well, and kind of go through that. And then in the session, we would, look at the software, and we can, look at all the details. And yeah, it's a lot of like, asking questions and trying to figure things out, what could be the ideal sort of spot.
Yeah, nice. And so that is really, really fun. So you've just told my story backwards, basically. So I felt like I couldn't reach any of my life goals in Utah, and so
Mm-hmm.
moving to Amsterdam. But it took me 5 years to really dive deep and figure out exactly, because I was a filmmaker before,
Mm-hmm.
and now now I'm doing something quite different. But I really dug deep, took 5 years, and
Mm-hmm.
really just like figured out where I fit in the world, what I was bringing
Mm-hmm.
into the world. And so that's really, really fun that you can see it in a chart. And so I would then come to you next to read forward, right? Like if I were to
Mm-hmm.
come to you, I'd be like, okay, should I settle? Are these the type of questions? I just want to make sure I have it right. So I would be like, okay, so I want to know where my next spot is. I don't know if Amsterdam's my
Mm-hmm.
forever place. Maybe that's a question. Or
Yeah.
should I settle in Amsterdam and plan to retire here? Is this a good move in the stars? Obviously, you can't tell me the future, but it's one tool maybe you could use when you're trying to test like what you're feeling.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, if you have a feeling like, should I go to a place? Definitely that's an option. Or again, some people are just like, they already know I want to move. I want to travel somewhere for a while. These are the places that I'm considering. Where is the best spot there? Because obviously countries are big. So like, where will I feel the best? And obviously everyone's also different. Like some people, I have clients that feel the energies really strongly and really immediately. And others, with astrocartography, it also depends which planetary line. For example, we're looking at some of the energies will take a while. It can take up to 3 months or so to kind of unfold. And obviously the longer you stay in a place, the more you'll start becoming your relocated chart. So it's not like you show up on day one, you're completely like transformed and everything has changed. But some of the placements will be felt like almost immediately. And yeah, with astrocartography also, I want to say, it's not just about relocation or travel. You can also use that knowledge just where you are, with remote activation. So for example, determining where are your ideal clients potentially located. So I noticed that in my case, a lot of my
Oh,
clients.
and I want to get into this with
Yeah.
the business part, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
ask one more question if I
Yeah,
can about
sure.
personal, and then we'll
Yeah.
get into business if that's okay, because that's super interesting that you do
Yeah,
both.
for sure.
Um, so one question I have is, so if you're moving yourself, that's one thing to consider. But say like I have a partner and three
Yeah.
kids, and our lines are obviously going to be different. And so would you suggest if a family is trying to move somewhere that would be beneficial for multiple members of the family, or ideally all of them? Obviously, there's no perfect place, especially for
Mm,
multiple people. But what is your recommendation for if people really want to make a really good choice and maybe they have a few options, or
yeah.
like me, like we can live anywhere, so we really can choose.
Yeah.
How would you approach that with your clients?
Yeah, so I know of a case just recently. I was talking to my peers, of a family that they all had different goals, but they were looking kind of to relocate somewhere. And they were so lucky that literally the stars aligned and they found a location that, checked all the things that everyone was looking for. But that's
That's
usually
got to be
not the
rare.
case. Exactly. Like
Yeah.
even doing readings for two people, like I work with a lot of couples, for example, that's already where it gets challenging, and one partner's kind of has to either compromise, or sometimes I get people coming to me and saying like, okay, okay, we're going to prioritize my partner because his career is kind of, more promising. I will take a step back. These are my objectives, but, if we cannot meet that, then that's fine. So, but in terms of like a family, generally the consensus is kind of if the parents are happy, if their careers are thriving or they're making more money than before, or, whatever it is, they have like a happy home life, they're not fighting or whatever it is, then the children are likely having a better life as well in that respect. So they can maybe travel more, or, they can do more extracurricular activities or whatever it is. So just like, in general, like happy parents, happy children. Obviously, if we could look at the children as well. And, there's definitely things to consider. But yeah, it gets complicated the more people that come in the mix for sure.
That's in general, but in astrocartography. And I think for international families, that's a really big thing. So most of my friends that are living internationally will have these moments where they sit down and go, okay, are we renewing our contract? Are we staying here?
Yeah.
Or their kids come to like go to a new school. Like they grow up, they go from one school to another, and there's these inflection points. And I can imagine a couple, if they were so inclined, or one of the people in the couple being like, hey, why don't we bring this in as a tool and just see what it says and see if it resonates? So I think that's really powerful, because it seems like there isn't a lot of, intuition is super powerful. A job moving you, super powerful. But this is just one more tool to make it a little more intentional, which I think is really nice.
Yeah. I guess on that point, I also like advise my clients, especially when they are looking to relocate, if they can travel to that location first, just to see, because the astrocartography may be great, but if you're not meshing with the people or the culture or just like generally the architecture or something, there's like little things, then, that's also something to consider apart from like climate and, personal preference, if someone wants to live in a city or not.
Yeah, this is not a predictive guide. It's not yeah.
Yeah.
You still got to use your own
Exactly.
discernment.
And the next step is also, I don't do that in the like initial reading usually, but you can definitely book a follow-up session where we look at timing specifically. So there are obviously with, transits and secondary progressions, and it's called cyclocartography. And again, the software that we use kind of makes it super easy. But there's a lot of things to just like consider and look at again. So it's usually like, a session in its own right. But yeah, you could definitely also like try to time your move, like when it's most beneficial, or things like that. So if you have the luxury to time things.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. Okay, so you also do something else that's super interesting, which you do astrocartography for business.
Yeah. So essentially, because again, my background kind of in careers and obviously running a business and just generally marketing. I'm just like super passionate about that. And again, it's a tool to kind of help unlock things. Again, I work with a lot of like people so that are looking to change careers, but business for sure.
Because your business has its own.
Exactly. Yes.
So House of Peregrine has its own birth chart, basically.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
I have no idea about this.
So again, you want to look at an official source ideally, and it's not really when you started things like officially like putting out your first messages in the world, but really like when did you register your business, or when did you like invest like a considerable amount to start your business? Like really like when did things, start? Like when did you purchase your domain? So like really like the initial kind of like first step. That's the best time to kind of consider. Obviously, if you have an email from like a government institution confirming your registration or something, that's where you can get maybe the time. I know it's sometimes tricky if the business has been in existence for a very long time and it might have not been captured. So then, we can use like 12 p.m. in general, like as when you have unknown time, that's often like the default. Yeah, and your business birth chart. Obviously, if it's a massive corporation, it's a whole nother story. But a lot of people I work with have like they're the founder and they're like a one woman or one man show. Or like, very small kind of operation. So you want to look at your business chart for like, you can fine tune your branding and your marketing and your financial strategy and kind of like unlock who your audience is. But then you want to, for like forecasting and things like that, really use your like personal chart, because again, you are the business.
Hmm.
So yeah, but having both in kind of and being able to look at that is definitely helpful. In your case, I also had a brief look at it. Very interesting, kind of like the placements that you have in your natal chart versus your business chart. They kind of like are either like in an opposition, which is quite nice, or like in other really good angles. So they're kind of like shifted. So there's like a lot of like nice overlap between the two. So I found that really interesting. That kind of yeah, there's definitely that. I don't know if you feel about this in that way, but yeah, it feels very harmonious and kind of like that it's like meant to be in the sense that yeah, things should be flowing more easily for you.
Yeah, it feels like I always say at House of Peregrine, part of our essence is magic because sometimes
Yeah.
things just magically happen, and I
Mm-hmm.
really love that. And I do feel like I brought it into the world in a very intentional way that
Mm-hmm.
was aligned with myself. But I was basically just like feeling my way through.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really fun to see it again in the chart, which is really nice. And I think that that gives it's just nice again to have another tool to check your intuition. So I always like to have like a gut check on a lot of things, and so it's fun to hear what you already kind of know, but then
Mm-hmm.
also if it I think this would be something that someone would come to you. So the next city House of Peregrine should open in, I could come to you and be
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I have a feeling that I want to open in these cities. How does that look on the chart? And then I could
Yeah.
maybe use that to be like, oh, does that resonate? Or no, I don't really like that.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense
exactly. And
financially.
that's
Yeah.
already like narrowing it down because again, I work with people who have no idea whatsoever. They just want to
Yeah.
get out of a country and
Yeah.
they don't know where to start at all. So it's like a tool also to start narrowing things down
Oh
before
yeah,
you even
nice.
get to that point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. You might have, we just had the election in the US
Mm-hmm.
this week. So I
Mm-hmm.
imagine there may be some people who are looking for a place to move.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, I'm sure. So there's that kind of people or
Mm-hmm.
businesses. And then there's people who, I can imagine someone who maybe has moved with their partner and now needs to
Mm-hmm.
change careers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that another, I think it would be a really nice use case because I think a lot of I don't like this term, but traveling spouses, like
Mm-hmm.
trailing spouses, um, they have to start over because their career, they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a license or something
Yeah.
for what they did before. So if they're a
Mm-hmm.
doctor or a nurse,
Yeah.
so that might be a really nice use too if someone needs to reinvent themselves.
Yeah, 100%. Because again, tapping into your midheaven, usually it's in the 10th house of career, but it could be in like in the ninth or 11th. Again, don't want to get too technical because I know we
Yeah.
might have people listening that are not familiar with all this. But yeah, it's definitely a tool. You want to look at it also in context of your like rising sign or ascendant. Again, who you are.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things you can just unlock, like, what careers could be, interesting. Again, looking at the relocated chart for the location, like what are your career
Yeah.
placements there? How are you making money?
Yeah.
Again, there's so much. And, the more time you have, the more you can like kind of unlock things. And yeah, it's again, just another piece of the puzzle, so to say.
Yeah. But you also mentioned something super interesting before that I want to bring in
Mm-hmm.
now, which is let's say your partner's you've decided that you
Mm-hmm.
and your partner are going to move somewhere that's very
Yeah.
advantageous for them. It may
Mm-hmm.
not be advantageous for you,
Mm-hmm.
but there's other tools that you can bring in where you're projecting a location
Yeah.
on. And so tell us a little bit about that. So it helps you be more strategic about being in a
Yeah.
place maybe that's not super nice for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing is remote activation. So, I mean, really what it says, say, you're living in Amsterdam, but you have a great line. So for career, for example, or business going through Spain, you could bring in those energies either through, just listening to Spanish music or watching Spanish TV on YouTube, watching vlogs from Spain. Sometimes people also experience this that, they're like, oh, so I have no interest in Spain, I have never been there, I don't know what, but then they might realize that their business partner's dad is from Spain, and that's kind of where the connection is. And so sometimes it's like random things like that, that these energies are already in your life without you knowing them, because you're not aware that that's maybe the place to be for your career. And yeah, another thing is like really using the astrocartography to your advantage, either for career or business, especially business. Obviously, if you're running, for example, a remote business, like I am, identifying where your potential clients could be. And in my case, like, again, I can definitely see where my clients are coming from. It's on my like Jupiter MC line. So my like kind of beneficial career line. And you can use that, for example, for like targeting, like say if you're doing organic posts on Instagram, for example, you could just in the location put in like something that's on that line and see if that helps you. Obviously, if you're doing paid ads anywhere, you can use kind of those locations to target. People
Oh,
use
amazing.
this
This is like super
information.
practical.
Yeah, people use this information, like for example, to determine should I go to conference A or B, because one's say in Madrid and one's in Rome. Where should I go? Because they're all expensive, and will there be better connections and better networking in one or the other? So you can use that in various practical ways.
And so you would look at the report you give and go, oh, this line she told me looks better. You help people know
Yeah,
what to focus
so
on.
in this case, I would definitely look at the career lines, and also again with the relocated charts, with the with everything else that I mentioned earlier, I would look at where are the positive career lines, and kind of like obviously again it's a conversation, and the longer you run your business, also I would ask have you had this experience? Have you seen a lot of people coming through from that area, for example? And then obviously try to like through and asking questions, also trying to work things out. But yeah, there's a lot of other tools and techniques. Again, don't want to get too technical, but yeah, you can definitely use astrocartography to figure out where to go. There's also a nice tool called local space. Usually we look at it from your birthplace. So like if you're under this line, and again, they span all around the globe, you can just unlock different energies. Obviously, if you're near your birthplace, there will be more kind of energies at play. But yeah, like you can use this in like, for example, you want to work out and you need that energy, but you're feeling lethargic. And then if you can also place them in the city you are, just like, placing them, say, in the center of Amsterdam and then seeing where they are. It's a bit technical, but you can use that to, for example, determine where should I go and work out? Like where should I have a gym so I have more energy because it's on that line. So some people use it even to determine which neighborhood in a city they should move in based on, the energies they want to unlock.
Yeah. Ooh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so what about friendships or love? Like it's career, that's kind of your like sweet spot, I have a feeling.
Yeah.
But if someone is like, hey, this phase of my life is about making, like, this is how I feel. I feel like I'm really satisfied in a lot of ways, but I'm like, now I want to find like my soul friends that I just want one or two people that are just like my soul friends. Or if someone's maybe looking for a partner, a romantic partner, those are also things you can those are different lines as well.
It's the same concept. So again, like for example, for friends, you would look at your 11th house. How does that look like? And again, kind of try to work it out from there, like what's going to happen in Amsterdam for you versus when you were back home, and all that. And then also looking at the lines that correspond to that. So same story, love as well. You would look at specific houses and then planetary placements, and then the lines as well. Obviously Venus, often associated with love, but doesn't necessarily have to mean that. Again, it depends on your chart and everything. Sometimes there's also like, again, weird stories like, you maybe didn't meet on that line, but again, there's like a connection there. Family comes from that location or something like that. So, there's this, but yeah, same concept. Some people that come to me are like, obviously career or business, being an important thing, but also I want to live in a place where I like feel really at home. Like I don't feel grounded or settled anywhere. Like where can I go? So we look at that. Like, again, we look at the 4th house placement, which is like home and kind of like what's happening there when you relocate and all that. So, yeah.
Wow. So if it's like, I know a lot of people, so I'm in my 40s. And so there's a lot of my friends that are slightly older than me. They're looking for like the place they've kind of traveled a lot or a little, and now they're like looking for like their place to settle. And so that would be something that someone could come to you and be like, hey, these are my ideas, or this is what I'm looking for. And then you could guide them to maybe a few options. Or
definitely
say, even better would be, I want to live somewhere in South America, or I want to live somewhere in North America. and then you could help them find
Yeah,
the more ideal
exactly.
placements.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
yeah,
Because
and
if you don't
obviously,
want to just move back to where you were born,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
really cool.
definitely. Yeah.
So these are all really fun, and I feel like in the world, again, this is why House of Peregrine exists, because there's all sorts of like baby name, like if you want to have your baby name
Mm-hmm. Yes.
generator,
Yeah.
or all this stuff, but like there's not really a lot out there that are just little taps to your intuition to be able to double check. And so I really love when I only learned about astrocartography maybe a year ago, and I was
Yeah.
like, this is amazing. This is what our peregrines need. Like this is what
Yeah.
we need to have something that identifies that we can be a bit more free.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's a relatively new concept, actually, to be able
Yeah.
to.
So Jim Lewis, he's kind of considered the founder of astrocartography, and he wrote this book in the 70s. So that's kind of when the concept came about. But yeah, it's only grown like in popularity in the last few years because obviously people are moving more. So people are living that laptop lifestyle. So it's becoming more and more important. So yeah, so definitely like makes sense that you've only learned about this more recently.
Yeah. And I think that it's really comforting to have some sort of, I don't know, like I said, when you have a baby or when you go to university, there's all sorts of stuff to help you conceptualize it. And so I think this is
Mm-hmm.
one of those that I really align with and think it's really nice to
Yeah, and
have.
speaking of university, that's also a good use case to if you're
Oh,
like torn between a couple locations. Where will you be able to learn the best? And again, also like kind of depending on what you study, there's also like things we could look at for that. But definitely the ninth house of like education, definitely worth looking at. And again, where will you have more positive lines and just feel better to be able to concentrate on your studies?
that's amazing. And for those of us, me, who that's the next stage you're trying to help your kids with, that's super helpful. So it could
Yeah,
be like you get it for them for their 18th birthday or their 16th birthday,
yeah,
a reading. Super
exactly.
fun. All right, you've just given me like a million ideas. So great job. Um, so your ideal client is someone who is, tell me, who do you love to work with?
My okay, so I naturally attract people that I guess want to work with. So it's people that are either like running their business or like living that laptop lifestyle. Obviously, I just work mostly with people who are ready traveling or living in places or are really like open to that and like really want to move and then yeah, I get a lot of people who are just like looking to change their career or like level up their career, kind of like they feel maybe a bit stuck in their current situation and want to understand, should I stay in this or should I do something else? If so, what is that next thing? So kind of what you described a bit. And it's a lot of millennials, but I also get a lot of people who are kind of like born in the 60s and 70s. I mean, it kind of comes in waves and yeah,
Yeah,
so it's all over the board for sure.
that's amazing. So the main ingredient is people want to have this influence in the guidance you give them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's really cool. And so you use your background in like career coaching, all that fun stuff, and then bring the astrocartography as
Mm-hmm.
a tool into that, which is really nice. It's really, really nice. Um, I love that you came on today. I want people to come to you if this resonates
Mm-hmm.
with them. Um, if someone is interested in any of the many readings you have just brought
Yeah.
up, I love them all. I feel like I'm going to need to hold back with readings. But how do they reach you? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, you can go on sandranelly.com. That's probably the easiest. You can find all the links to my Calendly, so you can book yourself directly into a session or a report. I also write a Substack where you can just like access free guides. I also have like a few like freebies around career and business astrology if you want to access those. And yeah, I'm all over social media as well. So if you'd like to follow, you'll find all the links on there as well.
So basically, at Sandra Nelly.
sandranelly.com, and on Instagram you can find me at astrology ventures, but yeah, on sandranelly.com you can find all the links to the different places.
Cool. All right, we'll put it in the show notes as
Mm-hmm.
well. Everyone, please reach out to Sandra if you feel like this would be beneficial for you. I'm really happy that you came on and told us all about it. And thank you for the information that I got to hear my story in reverse. That was really fun.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So, yeah.
I hope
Thanks so
people can
much
use
for
this
having
advice.
me. Yeah, I'm always happy to share. If anyone has any questions, you also find my contact details on my site and all those channels. So feel free to reach out if there's any questions. And I always try to tailor things as best as I can with the constraints that we're working with time and resources and all that. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Sounds perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone listening to the House of Peregrine podcast. We hope you enjoyed our time with Sandra Nelly.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.